Hi, I'm Sashank Desaraju, an MD PhD student at the University of Florida. I'd like to share with you how I use Visual Studio Code's tunnel feature for GPU accelerated software development on HiPerGator, our UF's supercomputer. This video is primarily intended for researchers at UF, but may be useful for other people using a Slurm-based cluster. During the video, I reference certain scripts that I've created to make my workflow more streamlined. These are here at this GitHub repository, which I will link in the video description. Okay, let's get started. So here I've opened up a terminal on my Unix-like machine. So here I'm running Pop! OS, which is a flavor of Linux. So the first thing I like to do is run tmux, the terminal multiplexer. You can see that at the top over here, it's created a little bar. And what tmux allows me to do is to have just one terminal window here in terms of one application, and yet I can run different commands on different little windows within the application, if that makes sense. So here on number 2 I have V, and on number 1 I have ASDF. Okay. So the next thing I do is I actually log into HiPerGator. I use SSH, but then after that I just type HPG since I've configured my SSH configuration setup so that HPG just stands as a little proxy for all of my user credentials that can get me logged in. Usually I will have to submit a Duo multi-factor authentication that the University of Florida uses, but since I logged in just a few minutes ago, it's put me right onto this login node over here. So here's my username, and we can see that it's put me onto a login node as I've just logged in. So now the next thing I do is I actually run this script called interactive.sh. And as I run that, we can see that it says srun queued, srun allocated, and now instead of saying login 12, it's changed over here after the @ sign to this compute node that is a compute node somewhere in the HiPerGator facility. So now I have an actual GPU enabled session. Let's take a quick peek into what interactive.sh says, what it does. So here we can see that it is just an srun command where I have different parameters filled in. And part of that is the partition GPU and the GPUs I'd like, which is one A100 GPU. And we can confirm that there is a GPU enabled with this command over here, where we see that there is an A100 80GB GPU that is now at our disposal once we're on this compute node. Okay, so now that we are on this compute node, the next thing that I do is I run tmux again. But now I'm running tmux from within HiPerGator. So there's kind of a tmux within a tmux. And in order for this to still work out, I have used a different leader key, as they call it, for my local computer's tmux versus my HiPerGator tmux, which we also see on the bottom as opposed to the top. So for HiPerGator, I've made the leader key Control A. So I can do Control A and then C to pop open another window over here. And I can use either the mouse or Control A P to go to the previous window. Okay, now that we've come to here, it's time to actually start this VSCode tunnel. So I have another script for that called VSCode tunnel.sh, which we can also pop open using NeoVim. That's the text editor I've been using to look at interactive and now VSCode tunnel. And we can see that this is just loading the VSCode binary and running this code tunnel. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. Now this has started running, and we can see that to grant access to the server, it wants us to log in here and use this code. Okay, I'll press down Control on the keyboard as I left click with the mouse to open up this authorization page. And here it's asking for this code. Let's see what it is. 4B33ADAB. 4B33ADAB. All right. Yes, I'd like to authorize. All right, we're all set. And we can see that underneath here, any minute now. Yep. It says open this link in your browser. Now, I can open this in the browser for a more limited but conveniently in the browser VS Code experience, but I want the full thing, and I have my Visual Studio Code application pulled up here. So now, since I've installed the Remote Development Extension Pack, I can open up the Remote Explorer over here, and since I'm all signed in with my GitHub account, I can now go to Sashank_HPG and click over here. And while this is open, and we can see this running here, I can use Control A and then N to come over to this next Tmux pane and pop open and pop over here to a project that I want to work on. Now I can just go ahead and open up a .py file in NeoVim and happily just do whatever I'd like. I can highlight a bunch of text, I can delete it, I can undo that, I can look for the word train and see wherever it appears in the file. I can quit out of that. Now let's see how the server is doing. It's doing well. So I just wanted to show that with .py files, you can also just write code and run it and all that directly from the terminal. And that's typically what I do, except for when I want to run notebooks, which are quite convenient. So I can open, now that I am in Sashank HPG over here, now these are all HiPerGator files, I can put in the file or folder name manually like this, or if it's something that I use regularly, it might be right here that I can click on, which is always convenient. So here you can see that it's opening up a .ipynb file, a Python notebook file. And this does not render well in a terminal-based text editor like NeoVim, or I think there's some Emacs plugin, but and there's some workaround with NeoVim, but it really doesn't work all too well. So for using notebooks, I really like using this, using Visual Studio Code like this. And now we have a GPU enabled session, so if I need a GPU for any machine learning or AI code, or for just some more classic large parallelization tasks that I want to do, I can totally do that. And here what I can do is, in this notebook, at the top right hand side of the screen, which might be hard to see, yep, on the top right hand side, there's this option to choose the kernel that I'm using. So I can choose from any of my Python environments. I quite like the one that I was using, CV for computer vision. So I'll go ahead and put that, and I'll put my picture in the camera back over here. And now what I can do is I can just run any cell that I want. And you can see it imported some packages, and okay, cool, let's run that. And that's the main thing that I wanted to showcase here. That's the main thing that I wanted to showcase here, that using VS Code's tunnel feature and some tricks in the terminal, you can start a GPU enabled session in the terminal. And one thing I forgot to mention is it's important that I ran interactive.sh in HiPerGator before I ran tmux for that second time in HiPerGator, because now what it means is the VSCode server here is running on this compute node, but so is this other command line stuff that I was doing over here. This is also on this compute node. Apologies if I said command node earlier. But all of this that I'm doing here now for editing text, it doesn't especially matter whether you have a GPU or not. But if I wanted to run this, run train, something like that, then it's very nice that I also can just do it straight from here, and I have that same GPU. So that's all that I really wanted to show in this video. I hope this was illuminating, and maybe you got some tips, some inspiration on how you can do things. The link to this GitHub repo with some of these scripts is in the video description. Let me know if you have any questions. You can put them in the comments underneath this video, or some other way that you can reach out to me or to the UF Research Computing team. Thanks for watching, and go Gators!